The summer of discontent may have shifted to spring, but the coalition is still battling deep dissatisfaction. Its popularity battered by the flagging economy and persistently bad headlines surrounding the school lunch program.
We've got some challenges right now.
I believe that the problems can be fixed.
This new mass-produced lunch program's been an abject disaster.
Kia ora, I'm Jo Moir. Welcome to Focus on Politics. The polls have not been kind to the coalition this year, and this week's Taxpayers Union Courier poll was no exception. Not only did it show the left bloc edging further ahead of the right, it put Labour in pole position, overtaking National as the most popular party. It's the fourth public poll this year to show the coalition party without the numbers to govern. Worse news for the PM, Chris Hipkins leapfrogged Christopher Luxon as preferred Prime Minister, albeit only just.
Well, look, it's a tough time for Kiwis, there's no doubt about it. They've been experiencing huge amounts of economic pain and, there's a number of polls and they sort of bounce around. But I just say to you, Kiwis didn't elect us to focus on polls. They elected us to fix the economy and get money into their back pocket. And, that's what my government and I'm doing each and every day.
So the poor poll results are a result of the fact that you haven't fixed the economy?
Well, actually, that's what New Zealanders voted us to do, is they want us to deliver. After years of lots of statements and bumper stickers, they actually want us to deliver for them. And what that means for New Zealanders who are wrestling with the cost of living, the number one issue that they are concerned about is we have to fix the economy so they get money into their back pocket. They'll ultimately make...
Yes, but those themselves are bumper stickers, aren't they? And what the point is, it's 14, 15 months on, the economy hasn't improved as you promised it would.
Well, I'd just say to you, it has been a really tough time. We've inherited a very difficult set of circumstances, as you would understand. But I would just say to you, in the last 2 months, I think there are signs that the economy is improving. Look at the growth in tourism. Look at what's happening in our agriculture sector. We've had manufacturing and services growth for the first time. So they're good things, but, ultimately, people need to feel it.
They're not feeling it yet. The poll found just 35.6% of voters think the country is going in the right direction. 48.9% of voters think the opposite. Certainly the year has not started well for the coalition. As well as the tough economy, the Prime Minister has had to deal with some troublesome ministers.
We had an animated discussion, and the point is that at one point I put my hand on their upper arm.
Communication struggles.
Would you have sacked him if he hadn't offered to resign?
Well, hypothetical, he did resign.
No, I know that, but just answer the question.
Well,
would you have sacked him?
Well, he didn't meet the expectations of a minister.
And the beleaguered school lunch program, serving up bad publicity nearly every day.
We've got some challenges right now. I'm confident the Minister will work his way through it.
Such is the state of the program that the Prime Minister himself was brought to this admission on Monday afternoon.
That was a terrible incident, a really unfortunate one. Something that, you just got huge heart for a parent sitting there while their child's been burnt through an exploding lunch like that. It's incredibly distressing. That's why, David Seymour's working incredibly hard through it.
Exploding lunches, melted plastic, incorrect labelling, late delivery. The litany of problems is already lengthy. And then on Tuesday, it got longer.
Gone by lunchtime, the company making more than 125,000 meals a day for the government's revamped school lunch program has gone into liquidation.
Labelle Group was suddenly put into liquidation on Tuesday morning. A statement was issued by the government stating it had been assured disruption would be minimised. The lead contractor Compass Group would take over Labelle's operations and continue to pay the workers to ensure the lunches kept on coming, uninterrupted. Senior Labelle staff and directors have not fronted this week, neither has the wider School Lunch Collective or Compass. RNZ Checkpoint reporter Louise Tenuth spoke to a worker outside Labelle's Hamilton operation shortly after the news broke.
We were just all brought into a meeting and everybody was told, yep.
Are you surprised?
Yes and no. We were struggling.
In what way?
Well, last year they did 20,000 lunches a week, and this year they were trying to do 120,000 a week. So, 2 or 3 times is possibly doable, but 6 times is quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. So there were issues inside?
There were.
Issues. But what were they? The liquidators, Deloitte, confirmed it would launch a full review. David Webb told Checkpoint's Lisa Owen that he was contacted by Labelle's director on Thursday evening with concerns about solvency.
The director has advised us that he was unable to pay wages and ongoing supplies without support, and therefore requested the shareholders to put the company into liquidation.
So how much do they owe?
It's early stages at this point. The liquidators are undertaking a review, so I'm not in a position at the moment to talk about what's owing because we don't know that.
I appreciate it's very early days, David, but from your initial assessment, how long has this company been in difficulty for?
Yeah, you're right, it is early days, and as I said earlier, we'll look to undertake a review as to those reasons, but at this point in time, I can say that I think Libel's been struggling for some weeks and some months in terms of its financial position.
The contract for the school lunch program, the revamped school lunch program, only came into fruition at the end of last year. So, was Libel already experiencing difficulties when it signed on for this contract?
At this point, I can't comment on that because I just don't have that information in front of me. But as part of the liquidation and part of the review that the liquidators will take, that is certainly something we will be looking at.
Do you know what assurances Libel had to give regarding its financial stability at the time it became involved in this program? Did it have to give any assurances?
I'm not aware of what assurances it had to give.
So we know this company was producing about 20,000 school lunches a day prior to entering this new lunch program, where they're now producing over 125,000 a day. What would you say about scaling up and how they've managed that?
The scaling up point that you make is certainly something liquidators need to look at as part of their review, but the fact that we're sitting here now as liquidators over a company that the director believes is insolvent, and we're focused on ensuring ongoing supply of lunches of the scale that I've talked to and that you've also mentioned, I think it is certainly a worthy question to look at in terms of that rapid growth.
I understand that they were getting about $9 a lunch previously, and obviously the government has been very clear publicly it's $3 a lunch now. Is it just that is too little to produce what's required?
That will also be something we look at as part of our review as to whether that did have an impact on Libel experiencing financial difficulty and then ultimately going into liquidation.
Okay. So what happens from now, David?
Probably three primary focuses for the liquidators right now today. One is to ensure that we support the Libel employees and the Compass Group to ensure ongoing supply of school lunches. Secondly, we're very aware that we need to find a long-term solution, so we are commencing discussions with interested parties around the purchase of the business. And then also we will look at undertaking a review over coming days as to the reasons for the liquidation.
So still a lot of unanswered questions. The theme continued back at Parliament, where the minister responsible, David Seymour, was somewhat cryptic when speaking to reporters.
I don't think it's bad. I actually think in the long term it's very good. There's some sensitive commercial matters being worked through, and I'm not going to give further detail of that because they need to be worked through, but our priority is keeping the continuity of supply for the children, and I believe in the fullness of time the record will show that we've acted very well, sometimes with some challenging circumstances.
What got them into trouble here?
Well, again, if I start judging what got them into trouble, then I'm going to be potentially disrupting some pretty sensitive negotiations, so I don't want to do that.
Can you guarantee this was potentially a good thing? Can you go into a bit of detail about how that could be the case?
Well, I think as soon as you get clarity and as soon as you get people on board delivering what they need to deliver, then you're in a good place. And I believe that we're going to end up in a really good place after this process is complete.
Are you happy that they were gone because they were the provider that was causing problems?
Well, again, if I start saying things like that, I would be prejudicing some of the sensitive negotiations going on. All I would say is our priority is continuity of supply, quality for the children, and in the fullness of time, I'm very confident people will see the full record and see that we've actually acted very well, sometimes with some difficult circumstances.
But it's due diligence done on that company before they were signed on to be part of the collective and chosen as the contractor for the government?
Yeah, all of the processes that should have been done have been done. you might ask, why didn't they work out the way that people hoped? Again, if I start casting aspersions on that, I may interrupt the process that's underway, but nonetheless, in the fullness of time, all of those details will be revealed, and I think people will say, actually, David Seymour, the Ministry of Education, the government, were doing the right thing at the right time.
Just give us a bit more sense of what's going on here. Enough for that provider to supply further vendors?
No, I believe that the budget is adequate, and again, if I start saying what I believe the problem is, that's actually not going to help.
Just give us a bit more.
The lack of detail may or may not be warranted for now, but it certainly left a void, quickly filled by critics. Critics like Labour's leader Chris Hipkins.
Oh, I think it can't be good news for the stability of supply to schools, but probably the bigger concern is that the alternative suppliers that schools might have been able to switch to, many of them have now gone out of business because David Seymour and the government decided to opt for this one-size-fits-all model where, alternative suppliers were basically forced out of the market. When we set up the free and healthy school lunches program, we gave schools a range of choices, and it meant that if the school lunches being delivered weren't up to scratch, the schools could actually switch providers, and some of them did. And LaBelle Group was one of the ones that actually was losing schools because it wasn't delivering what they were asking for.
If there's no one to step into the breach, as you suggest, is this the death knell for the school lunch program?
Well, I always suspected that, the ACT Party wanted to kill the lunch program off right at the beginning, and that they've been aiming to do that. David Seymour's been aiming to do that right from the start. The lunch program was set up to provide free, healthy, locally made school lunches that were going to meet kids' nutritional needs, but also that would create local employment. They've killed all of that off. A lot of local jobs got lost, a lot of local businesses lost the custom that they were getting from their local schools. This new mass-produced lunch program's been an abject disaster.
Boyd Swinburne from Health Coalition Aotearoa says now's the chance to push reset.
If you ask the schools, they would be very keen to get back to the previous models, which were, bespoke. They were suited to this particular schools. It was seen as a weakness that there were 40 or something different types of contracts, or different contracts with different providers, but actually it meant that the schools were in close touch with their local providers, that they were responsive to feedback from the schools and the students. They were able to respond. And I think that's the kind of food system that we need. These big central systems, big long supply chains, they are very fragile and they're very vulnerable to breakdown, whereas more local short supply chains are much more robust and resilient. And especially when it comes to events like lockdowns or cyclones or those sorts of issues, they can turn their hand quite quickly to help families in need.
By Wednesday morning, a group of school lunch providers had gone public with its own plan to take over. One of them was Trust House. Its chief executive, John Prendergast, appeared on Morning Report.
We've written to the Minister and said we have got a plan that we believe we could, at reasonable notice, stand up, and it would be based rather than on one national provider and huge supply chains with all the risk that goes with that. It would revert back to being based on local suppliers, supplying local schools. So the lunch that's been made in Hamilton today to be delivered to Bluff the week after next, previously that was made in Invercargill in a kitchen, and so they'll be making it right now.
Well, the issue here is cost. So can your plan get anywhere near... Now, I'm not entirely sure whether this $3 figure is still right, but...
The $3 lunch is not a thing. It was when the contract was signed on the 22nd of October. But since then, we've seen increases that the government, the ministry, has approved for Compass. We've seen funding approved by the ministry to go directly to schools to help them with the distribution of lunches within the schools.
So what's the new figure then, you think?
Well, we don't know, but I suspect it's probably approaching somewhere around $5. There's been a lot of talk about the $3 lunch and it used to cost $9. Well, it's not a $3 lunch, and it didn't used to cost $9. It used to cost, on average, about...
So do you think it can be done then somewhere in the middle here that would be acceptable to the government? Because, I mean, they've looked to save a couple of $100 million a year on this program. They still need to do that, presumably.
Well, they don't have to save that much. The budget in May last year approved more funding than what has been spent on the school lunch program at the moment. the procurement process resulted in more schools being brought into the Compass program than what they tendered for. But in answer to your question, I think there is a sweet spot somewhere between what the current cost is and what the cost used to be previously, and that's what we're working through now.
David Seymour says he's keeping his options open, but for now there's no thought of cancelling Compass's contract.
I believe that the problems can be fixed. I believe they are being fixed. I think taking away the contract right now is probably the worst thing we could do. We've got 100% delivery yesterday. We've got a really good track record of solving problems. There's a few more that we're in the process of solving right now. It'd be crazy to throw the baby out with the bathwater at that point.
The government has given itself until the start of Term 2 to get the program sorted. But Term 1 still has about a month to run, and that is a long time to be wearing negative headlines. If the government hopes to turn around its popularity, it would do well to move quickly. That was Focus on Politics. I'm Jo Moir. Thanks for joining me. Mā te wā.